Well, welcome to Oral History Night, and I have a disclaimer. Gerald and I are actually kin. His grandfather, Charles Brown, or Roscoe Brown, was my grandmother's brother. So we grew up together. He's a little older than I am, though, by about 5 years. And most of you know him as your city councilman, among other things around here. And Gerald, thank you so much for agreeing to come and be a part of this. I think it's important.
Glad to do it.
Good. Now, you were born in 1940, and I believe that you are named after your mother's brother, Gerald. And I thought perhaps you would share with everyone what happened with Gerald. It's an interesting story.
Well, Uncle Gerald was in the beginning of World War II, and he had been wounded once and sent back to the front lines, and he got killed in the invasion of Normandy, I think in 1944. And I was named after him, but I don't remember him, but I remember everybody, the families getting together when they got the word that he had been killed. I can remember that. I guess I was 4 years old. But I've got 2 Purple Hearts that he got. That's about what I know of him.
Your grandmother, I believe, had 2 sons that were in that war.
Uncle Carlton also.
Your Uncle Carlton was fortunate to come back, so that was...
Yeah, he was in the Pacific Theater, and he didn't know Uncle Gerald had got killed until they didn't tell him until he come home at the end of the war, when he found out that his brother had been killed.
Now, you live on land that was once owned by your great-grandparents, Sarah and Charles Cole.
Right.
And I believe I noticed that you said you were actually born in their home.
In grandmother and granddaddy Brown's at the time.
Oh, in their home, okay.
Yeah, where Jay lives there now.
Right.
Yeah, on Cutler Avenue.
And your father and mother, Floyd Bailey and Catherine Bailey, ran Bailey's store, and that included a Texaco gas station. Now, as a child, I remember going into that gas station, and I loved to go in at Christmas because that new Texaco truck was on display. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember, but every year Texaco came out with a new truck. And I'd like for you to tell people, now many people here may know about gas stations and they should have been called service stations then, but tell them the difference in a gas station and what happened then as opposed to today.
Well, then, like here in the country, it was a grocery store, service station combined. And that we sold gas. And I remember the first pump was an old pump. You pumped it up. It had a glass top. The gallons, you pumped it up like 205 gallons. You pumped it up to 5 gallons, then you put it in the car. Didn't have electricity to it, but that changed years later. And had we changed oil, grease cars, service cars, and had a full line grocery store, groceries and fresh meats. Had a feed department for feed. Everybody had horses and cows then, and it was all combined together, pretty much. And we lived in the back quarters of it.
Now, how old were you when you started pumping gas? Because in those days, people didn't drive up and pump their own gas.
I don't know. I guess I was 8, 9, maybe. And then it was full service. You pump gas, you check the oil, and you clean the windshield. And my granddad, my papa, Bailey, lived with us, and he stayed there and pumped the gas about all the time. And he was, I think, 93 there. And when I was 10, 11 years old, I was helping Daddy change oil on grease cars, that kind of stuff.
Do you remember much at all about the end of the war and when you had the store and how things were rationed, or do you remember people talking about that?
I remember it being rationed. Sugar was rationed, gas was rationed, and that's the only things I remember being rationed. But after the end of the war, then that wasn't long till the rations come off.
I remember how neat it was to go into the store and your dad would slice whatever we would ask for in terms of meat. And I was living in Connecticut at one point and went into a deli, and all of a sudden it came back to me that we had a deli here, didn't we, in essence?
Yep.
Do you remember what meats were available then? It wasn't quite like today in Boar's Head, was it?
No, we had bologna was in a long stick. You sliced it off. One type of ham, like that. We had most of the meat cuts, you know, that you get in the store now. Didn't have the selection you have now, but he cut steaks and T-bones and ribeyes and cube steak, they called it. And we ground our own hamburger and ground sausage in the store.
Now, you sold a lot of feed because people needed that here, obviously.
Well, then just about everyone had a cow, and the sawmillers, woodmen, you know, had horses that still pulling logs and stuff, and feeding their horses, of course, feeding hogs, feeding pigs, and all kinds of feed for them.
And I recall that often feed sacks, and sugar came in larger bags as well, that they were in cloth
Prints.
and prints.
Yeah. People would save them and make their dresses and shirts and stuff out of the feed sacks then, because everything was in print sacks.
A lot of quilts also were made from those feed sacks as well. Now, there were no credit cards in those days,
No.
but there was credit.
Credit, yeah.
You want to tell everybody how credit worked up here in Mentone?
Well, everything just about was credit. Everybody traded on credit just about and pay their bill at the end of the month, and it was wrote out on tablets and stuff, and then put and filed. And some people, like the loggers and sawmillers, well, farmers, didn't have any income through the winter, and Daddy, Mother would carry a lot of them all winter long. But then when spring came, when summer come, they'd go to work. They caught their bills up. It was, but about everything was credit back then.
Lumber was really one of the main stays for employment and for income here. So if it rained, you didn't work.
Didn't work. You got cold weather.
It got really cold, you didn't work. And it was hard work.
Yeah, and the winters then were a lot colder,
Much
colder than they are now.
And as he mentioned, logging was done with mules. There were no tractors, there was no clear cutting at all in those days. It was a very different way of harvesting. And your dad really did do a lot of good in this community in helping these people out because they had no money for, or not much, for periods of time. Now, you were a student here.
Yeah.
And what are some of your memories, especially as you walk around and look around here?
Well, it's all changed so much to what it was then, but I started school in the first grade in the first building back there, second and third grade in the next building over there. And we all, at recess, we all went out and played together. The bathrooms were outhouses down at below the gym. And that's pretty much, I went through the third grade here, then I went to Valley Head.
Now, you had no running water here.
No.
And would you tell them about cloakrooms?
Yeah, each room had a small room behind it. At the end of it was a cloakroom where you hung up your clothes and you stored stuff and hid stuff, I guess, that you weren't supposed to have. That's pretty much it.
And there was the water bucket with a dipper.
Yeah.
And did you bring your own glass to school?
No, everybody drank out of the dipper.
They did.
Yep.
We were a bit more hygienic when I came along. We had to bring a glass and then fingernail polish. They put your initials, so times had changed a bit. But we still had no running water, even in 1951. Now the bathrooms were down there, as you said, at the gym.
Below the gym down there, yeah.
And there was a girls and a boys.
Yeah.
I think there were about 4 stalls in each outdoor toilet, as I remember. And what do you remember about the playground?
It was all out front, in front. I don't think we had anything back here. We all played out front and down toward where the Baptist church is.
And towards the Shigley house, we went in that direction a bit.
That's probably later. I don't think we played back there.
Did you? Did you have a slide?
No.
So you didn't have a slide, you didn't have a merry-go-round or swings?
Didn't have anything.
Okay, well we did have them by 51, so you just left too early, I guess, didn't you? How were your teachers? What do you remember about instruction here?
Well, I had Miss Foy, and she was strict, but she got us started in the right foot, I think. I guess, learned what we got a good start. But she was pretty strict. Some thought she was mean, but I don't think she was really mean. She was just strict. And then we went to Miss Catherine, and she was sweet, and everybody loved her, and learned a lot under her, too.
How was the school heated in those days?
Warm morning heaters, fired with coal.
And who stoked the heaters?
I don't remember now.
I know that some of the 8th grade boys, I think we had a janitor who may have stoked them and got them started, but then the 8th grade boys would come in during class time and replenish either coal or wood, whatever we were burning. But can you imagine 1st graders in a room? Now, warm morning was almost as tall as I am. It's probably close to 5 feet tall, as I recall, or at least it seemed like it as a child. But each room had a warm morning in it, and they had to be kept warm all day long when we were in school in winter. Now, when school was out for the summer, how did you spend your time as a child?
Well, as a small child, kids get together and play in somebody's yard or in somebody's pasture, play ball, play different, kid games. As we got a little older, we worked. Like when I was 10 years old, Edmund Edward Cash myself worked at Camp DeSoto, raking leaves in the spring to get ready for camp for 35 cents an hour. When we got 12 years old, we got 50 cents an hour. And we cleaned the yards and rolled the tennis courts, and cleaned out the river, leaves out of the river and stuff like that as kids. We all worked as kids back then.
Now, there were child labor laws, but Mentone didn't know about them. It was kept secret because we all worked at something or other. And as he said, I mean, you started really young. I think I started about 12 babysitting, you know, that sort of thing. Where was your favorite place to go swimming in Mentone?
Riverside, Camp DeSoto's docks, and then the Riverside Hotel was there, which is part of Camp Skyline now, and it was open to the public too. It was on their property, and it was a good place to swim. And then they had the docks. DeSoto had the docks, and they didn't care for anybody else using them, except when the girls was swimming. When the girls was swimming, everybody else had to clear out and go to the other side of the river. And then we had a big swing and a tree there. It would swing, had a platform that'd swing you halfway across the river. And that's where we done most of our swimming. And then we used Bell Rock some for that most people's heard of for do a little swimming, mostly fishing there.
Yeah. Now, during your youth, Mentone had quite a few stores. There was Manderson's, there was the Mentone grocery store, which is now the Mentone Market.
Yeah.
We had Kirby's store
At the top of the mountain.
at the top of the mountain. And we had several hotels. We had the Mentone Inn, which is still,
Was Hal's place.
which was Hal's place. The Sunset Hotel, which became the White Elephant Antique Shop. We had the Mentone Springs Hotel, and we had a tourist court down behind where the current fire department is. And then, as you said, we had hotels on the river. And what do you remember about the facilities for tourists during that period of time?
Well, they were just large rooms. I think they had each room didn't have a bathroom. They had several rooms, I think, shared bathrooms and stuff. And besides, we had the Riverside Hotel there. We had Riverdale Hotel, which is Rob's Lodge now. And Nipper Lodge. Let's see, was there another one? I guess that's them.
Sunset Rock, maybe.
Well, that was Sunset Lodge.
Sunset
Rock.
Hotel.
Yeah, Sunset Hotel. Yeah.
And the people who came, why did they come here?
A lot of them came for years ago, like Mentone Springs. They had the springs all the springs had different types of chemical waters. They'd come here for their health, their drinking water, and the health for the health for it.
And remember, there was no air conditioning to speak of in the South in the 50s and 60s. You know, they always talked about the South rising again. Well, it took air conditioning to raise the South again, I believe. I'm not for sure, but I think that was the impetus for the rejuvenation of the South. In those days, people came here to escape the heat from the cities. And today, often people will say to us, well, I was a flatlander until I moved here and retired. Well, in our day, it was the summer people. That's what we call them. They showed up in June and they left in August when their kids started to school, and they were here all summer long. Their husbands would come up, maybe even on the train for the weekends to be with the families. It was very different, and the trains ran. They stopped everywhere between Birmingham and here, and we had a taxi down in Valley Head that would pick up people and bring them up here. The hotels were full and busy.
They were full, they were busy. There's a lot of. I remember Daddy gave out thermometers, Bailey's Grocery, that had always cool at Mentone on them.
And it was.
And I've got one of them somewhere. I don't. If I
Oh,
can find
good.
it. I don't know where it's at, but I've got one.
You know, the thing that I remember, your grocery store was a bus stop
Yeah.
for the school children. And for the first years of my school, I was fortunate that that was my bus stop. Because in those days, if you had a penny, you could buy a piece of candy. My grandchildren say, oh no, you're kidding. But no, you had a huge selection of candy and ice cream.
Dip ice cream.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your dad hand dipped and your mom, all that. It was wonderful. Now, next door to you lived Mayor Harvey. Was he our first mayor?
No, I think Mr. Huron, maybe one before Mr. Huron, I'm not sure, but Mr. Huron, then Paul White
Was he
several
mayor
years.
for a while?
Several years before Mr. Harvey was mayor.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep.
Paul White was our plumber.
Plumber, electrician.
Hmm. Most of the houses up here probably were plumbed and the electrical was done by Paul.
By Paul, yeah.
He was quite busy.
Yeah. Two or three employees all the time.
Yes, he did. Now, when Mr. Harvey was mayor, as I recall, there were quite a few improvements made around Mentone.
Well, I guess what is town hall now was built when he was mayor, I believe. And,
Were the pavilions up on the Brow Park built during his time?
I don't believe, the first one might have been, but the other one, and both of them, I think, were built several years later.
And then what about some of the facilities down at the falls? I was thinking that Mentone might have had something to do with building them, or at least putting in the picnic tables.
They may have, and then, of course, it was under the county or state, but they had dressing rooms and a snack bar. Could buy hamburgers and things down there then.
We had a diving platform.
Had a diving platform. Yep. It's been gone, I guess, for years now. And had two different heights you could dive from.
Now, there was a scary high dive. I never went off that. Did you?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But I never did dive off the falls, but I knew several boys that did. There's one place there did dive off the falls for $1.50.
Were they sober?
Well, I don't know.
Now, your grandmother, Ethel Brown, along with a lot of the offspring, were really steadfast in moving forces in the Mentone Methodist Church. And actually, in the Methodist Church in Alabama, because one of your uncles ran the camp down, the Methodist camp.
Simatonga.
Yeah, Simatonga. So what impact did this have on your life?
Well, I was just raised in a Christian home, a Christian church, and it carried with me through the years. I guess I got away from it a lot because I was on the road traveling for 58 years. And but then I'm active in the church and that, but in the Mentone Community Church. And
Now, when did you get your first car?
when I was 15 years old.
And did you have a driver's license
No.
then?
Didn't need one.
When did you learn to drive?
When I was 12. I delivered groceries from the store to people when I was 12 years old in a car.
That's pretty typical of Mentone. People drove really early. We were very precocious when it came to driving, weren't we?
Yeah.
And what was your first car?
50 model Ford.
Was it your favorite car of all time?
No, 57 Chevrolet is
Oh,
my favorite
yeah.
car of all time. I wish I still had it.
I think most people who ever had a 57 Chevy or Ford would still like to have that,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Now, in looking at the future of Mentone, do you have any hopes for the future? Any things you would really like to happen here in Mentone?
Well, I know there's gonna be growth, and there should be growth, I guess, but I'd like for it just to be the quiet family atmosphere community it is now. And like for it to stay safe and everybody love everybody and be friends. And I know it's like it's got to grow some, I realize that, but as it grows, just hope that everything stays with a friendly, safe atmosphere. Pretty much.
Now, in looking back in growing up in this place, are you glad you grew up here?
Yes, absolutely.
And what kinds of things do you look back and value in terms of having grown up here?
Well, like I say, it was all family oriented, family atmosphere, and families back then. Families still got together on. Everybody went to Grandma's house on Sunday, on holidays, on weekends, and like at Grandmother's house, all cousins and stuff. Of course, several of us lived around here, and others would come in, like at Christmas, and stay for several days, and be. Of course, it'd be a lot of food, but the men would play rook. They'd have a couple of rook tables, and they might play for a day and a night, 2 days and nights, and not ever stop. They'd just switch tables and see who the champ was. It was, we could go where we wanted to and not be bothered. Like the land was private land still in, but we could go on the river and fish anywhere we wanted to. Nobody'd say anything to us. We could go, you could swim if you wanted to, anywhere you wanted to. We could hunt, as long as you didn't, of course, like I say, it wasn't so many people, it wasn't as crowded now as it is now. And we had more freedom, yes, more liberties, I guess you'd say.
The rule of thumb was, if there wasn't a fence, you were free to just wander and explore, and it was freedom.
Yeah.
Complete freedom as a child. It was wonderful. Well, Gerald, I'm going to open this program up so that people have the opportunity to ask you questions. Barry?
Hitching post. What's your thoughts about the hitching post?
Now,
Yeah.
well, I don't know what's really going on there, but I'm glad to see it doing something happening there.
Well, what's your experience with that?
Well, when I was a kid, Guy Smith, myself, would ride bicycles. We was 10, 12 years old. They still had dances up there then. And we'd slip in up there and they'd run us off. We'd slip back in and they'd run us off. But there was crowds up there then. Of course, it wasn't crowds like it would be now, but a lot of the people that danced went there was the people staying in the hotels and stuff. Of course, a lot of locals would stay there too. And it's just a good time, I guess.
And there was a soda fountain there at one time where you could go in and get Cokes and
well, the
milkshakes.
post office was there at one time too, in part of it.
Mm-hmm. Where the Gordy shop is. That was the post office for a while, before the City Hall became the post office, and then it moved where it is today.
And Marsha, who was the postmaster?
Yeah, my dad was
Leland
for quite
Collins.
a while. Yeah. Other questions? Rob?
Sure, once you told me that your dad was instrumental in getting together with a group of folks to buy the property for Brow Park and get it in the hands of the town. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I don't know much about it. I know when he was on the council, they got bunch together and bought that land, and for years, the park in the winter there was a gate up. You couldn't go in there, and they closed it at night at a certain time, and I don't remember just exactly who all was in on it, or when it was opened up to the public.
I was glad to see that gatherings now are happening there and they're open to the public, because we used to have socials there. I can recall ice cream socials. People would bring an ice cream freezer, the kids would crank it, jump around on the rocks, and then all of a sudden everyone would open the ice cream freezers, and you would taste everybody's ice cream, and it was really nice to have those kinds of things. And we had them down at the park as well, fish fries, things of that nature.
Napa is starting that again.
Yes, I was really pleased to see that. I think it's wonderful. Other questions? Yes.
You talked about not having running water here and drinking out of a bucket. Where'd that water come from?
Had a well, and I don't remember.
We had a pump. We had a well house, and it had a pump. And we actually had, by the time I came here, a drinking fountain connected to it. But it was definitely a well that filled the buckets. And I'm assuming that either the 8th grade boys, or if we had a janitor, every morning fresh water was put into the cloak closets.
The well was on the north side of the building. wasn't it?
Yes.
Right up, best I remember.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience with the American Legion?
No.
You do, right?
Yes, played rook there many a night.
Yeah, I played rook and stuff there, and we used to, at one time, we'd have teenage dances there. A few of us.
Your father is one of the founders,
Yes.
Yeah.
built in 1948.
48.
Any other questions? Yes.
So when did the water pipes all come through town?
Do what?
The water pipes, when did they come in for public water?
I don't remember, when it first came in, but I remember the town had their own water system, had their own filtration system and stuff. It was behind the Riverside Hotel down on the river. The water was pumped out of the river and filtered there and pumped all over town. $3 a month. But I don't.
So the pipes were already set then when the big water system came through? the pipes
Yes.
already-
Yeah,
There were some.
they redone most of it, added some more.
Lightning Goss was our waterman
Yeah,
and our mail carrier.
mail carrier.
And he, on weekends, had a repair shop. He could
Small
fix
engine.
anything, couldn't he?
Yep.
It was really amazing. Yeah.
His name was Lightning Goss.
Lightning Goss.
Arthur Goss. Arthur Goss.
We
They
called it,
him
his name
Lightning.
was Arthur, but he was always called Lightning. I don't know where the name came from, but it was, yeah. Everybody had a nickname, just about it.
Didn't he fix lawnmowers?
Yeah,
Oh,
small
yes.
engine repair.
Small
yeah.
engine repair, so many
Yeah.
things like that, yeah. Yes,
Do
Diane?
you remember when I guess it would be the secondary roads were paved? I remember that as a child, and Jim Folsom was the governor, and I guess he's the one that got the roads paved. Did y'all appreciate that, or was that a good thing? For us as children, we missed the sandy roads to walk barefoot down, but,
Well, I remember when the covered bridge was still. I remember the day when it fell with a county truck on it. And 2 or 3 men come up to the store. We had to make a phone call. It wasn't any phone. Mother and Daddy at the store had about the only phone around. And it was on one of those little ring things on the wall that everybody listened to. Party lines.
I always said there were 2 places you could go for information in Mentone. One was the post office, because everyone came. In those days, you could get mail at home, and then there was just general delivery. You could send Mentone General Delivery.
Mhm.
And people would just go up and say, I have a mail today. And we had illiterate people, and my father would read letters to them that they received. But the two places for information was the post office and Gladys Cash, who was the operator. And she could hear all of the goings on that telephone. So it was a real different time. Holly, I think you had a
I
question.
was just gonna say, I remember your parents, Gerald, from, I guess, the late '50s on, and they were just, we were just little kids, my brother and I, and they were just so sweet and kind to us, always, and it was a real treat to get to go in the grocery store.
Thank you.
If we behaved ourselves, we could get a little 6.5 ounce Coke and an ice cream sandwich or something like that. It was a really big deal. And I remember there was a screen door on the front, and it had the most succinct, to the point advertisement on it I ever saw. It said, "Colonial is good bread."
That's
Yeah.
right. It did.
And I had a little dog that could, in the summers, when it was just a screen door, go in at the store when it wanted to. It'd open and close the screen door.
How long did your parents run the store?
31 years, I believe.
And then they retired?
Well, Daddy died, and Mother kept the store open for 3 years, and we just finally convinced her to sell the stock out and close it. And then she sold the building years later.
And nobody continued it as a store?
Not as a store.
And the building is still there?
Yeah, if somebody rents it for a house or something now.
And then your mom became the town clerk.
Yeah, for years. I think she was clerk till she was 88, I believe.
89, I think.
88 or 89, and walked every day. She wouldn't let anybody pick her up, or unless it was raining or bad. She'd walk about 3/4 of a mile each way. She walked all the time.
How old was she when she died?
105.
She was amazing.
You got good genes.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Gerald. It's really neat to hear your memories of how Mentone and the area used to be. But I was curious about the interaction between the summer kids and the local kids when they came up. Did you do things together? Did you play together, or did everybody stay on separate sides of the room?
No, we played together and run around together some, and played ball, stuff together, swam together.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you would see some of them would come back the next summer, so you would actually be able to form relationships with them.
Kind of be friends, yeah. Same friends every year.
Well, they had to be told about how things worked here, and not to be afraid of snakes, not to be afraid of lizards. I mean, there was a learning curve for those kids, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So, we locals had to fill them in. If they were going to survive in Mentone. Any other questions?
So Gerald, I just had one more. Did you have electricity in your house growing up?
Yeah.
In the 40s and, okay.
Yeah. We had electricity and running water inside bathroom. But a lot of people didn't have the inside bathrooms. I guess we were lucky ones.
And there were some who didn't have electricity.
Yeah.
Even in the 50s, surprisingly.
Was 117 paved?
Yes.
117 was to the Georgia line. Georgia line to Menlo was still a dirt road when I was young.
Well, Gerald, thank you for coming and being with us tonight, and
Thank y'all
it's
for having me.
really wonderful to fill in a piece of Mentone history with your experiences.
It's, you said it.
And thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank y'all for coming.
Exactly.